Okay, fun times. Welcome back to AATV. I'm your host Tom Anvil Hibberd, and today we're going to look at some optics from Holy Warrior supplied by the Cage Airsoft. So as ever, we're going to be entirely honest with you. The Cage Airsoft not only provided all the optics for this review, but they also paid our expenses. That won't affect my opinion, and I can stay completely honest with you. All they've asked us to do is just run this video past them before we publish it to you, so they can check any factual errors. So if you remember a while back, we had a look at Airsoft optics, and I made a very bold assertion that there weren't really any good Airsoft EOTech clones or copies. Well, Eric from the Cage got in touch, and he said he may well have a great solution for us. And this is the range of EOTech alikes made by Holy Warrior. Doing some digging around, I found some really good reviews of these on the internet, various Facebook groups. So I said, yeah, fantastic, send them in and we'll have a look at them. As well as that, he sent a variety of other optics that Holy Warrior do as well. And in a minute, we're going to take those to the range and have a shoot at them. But what I thought I'd do first is take you through how we're going to run these tests. So to have a really good look at them, again, we're going to take them to the range and we're going to shoot them with the GBLS DAS L119A2 by C-Tech that the Cage also supplied for us a while back, because that's going to give them a bit of a hammering, and we'll see if they lose zero, if the reticules change, if the mounts slip, and all of that kind of stuff. Then we're going to have a look at what is called parallax. So that's when you put the dot on a target and you move your head around behind the optic so you're not completely square behind it. And in a lot of cases, in fact in all cases, but sometimes the effect is minimized, the dot will move around on the target even though the gun's been held in the same place. It's called parallax, and it can mean you miss your shots. Some sites are much better at parallax than others, and some are really quite terrible. And then for the last part of the test, we're going to run them through a Silnex digital night vision camera, just to have a look at if they work under night vision. Most Airsoft optics don't, some do, and most of the really good real military ones do as well. So we'll be able to show you whether they work under night vision or not. So this is the Holy Warrior S1. They also do an S2, which has a lower mounting solution. And both of these come in black and tan. The tan is really nice. In both cases, the construction is really high quality. I mean, that reflects itself in the £150 for the S1 and the £130 for the S2. But like all things in life, you pay for what you get. Optically, they're both the same. They both have the same internals and they both work in the same way. So it's really up to you cosmetically which one you want to go with. So we're down today at Thurston Airgun and Archery Centre to try them out and see what we think. Now we're going to use our electronic attack sense targets in some of the game modes to test them out. So we're going to put the targets into shooting gallery mode. I'm just going to get warmed up. Haven't been on the range for a while. Okay, fun times. So the light transmission through the window is pretty good. It's a little bit darker, but compared to some Airsoft optics, it's a lot less smoky. And there's not a massive amount of edge distortion at the edge of the window either, so the things don't deform too much. And there's no real artifacts, which is really good. Sometimes things change very slightly magnification, or they get a bit odd and stretched at the edge of the lens. And this is really good. The reticule's nice and clear. It's not canted. Doesn't flicker when I fire. All in all, really nice. Let's do a bit more shooting. So this is first of our parallax tests with the Holy Warrior S1. I've got it attached to a spare fore end, which is then attached to a camera tripod to keep it stable. And that simulates me moving my eye around behind the optic. In this case I'm using one of the cameras to show you what the difference is. And you can see the parallax error on the Holy Warrior S1 is very minimal. It's pretty good, very impressed with this. This is the same setup, but this time using my Sonex mounted directly behind. Filming through, this is the lowest power normal setting. The S1 does have a night vision setting. This is it on its lowest power. It looks like it uses an IR LED. IR on the Sonex appears blue or light purple. It's going through the various brightness levels on the night vision. So the S1 is night vision compatible. So these Holy Warrior S2s and S1s are by far the best EOTech clone I've seen on the market and used. Very happily use one of these. I think they're excellent, particularly if you're doing a loadout which needs one of these for your kit. Here's our Amazon, eBay standard Airsoft EOTech clone. Doesn't have a night vision setting. Instead it goes from green to red. Reticule. The mounting is a bit loose. Construction wise, this is nowhere near as nice as the Holy Warriors. This one I sprayed up a while ago, so it's more difficult to show you. But particularly the mounts, light and day is better on the Holy Warrior than this one. And as you'll see on the range, the reticule in the Holy Warriors and the light transmission is much, much better. It should be, because this is 3 times the price. The reticule itself is very slightly canted anti-clockwise, so it's not straight up and down. Even on, and this has a fresh set of batteries in, even on full power, much, much dimmer. And there's a lot more image distortion. Particularly the windows are a lot darker, the optics just don't transmit the light in the same way. Much smokier image. And there's more reflection as well coming back at me. I can see more of myself. So there's nowhere near the clarity of image that we got on the Holy Warrior. They are probably, this is a third of the price. So you kind of have to work out what is important to you in these situations. So let's do some shooting with it, see what happens. Sometimes with these, under recoil, the reticule changes colour, which is always fun. We'll see if it does with this one. Oh. It's very slightly harder to switch targets because some of the lens distortion and some of the reflections on the lens can obscure what you're switching to. So you're not quite so sure what you're going to. It's really off-putting. Because of the reflection on the lens, out of my right eye, I've got my reflection looking at me kind of just off to the side here. And that is obscuring targets to my right. I can just about still see them, but they're kind of almost covered up by a secondary image here. Amazon EOTech on the parallax rig. You can see how dim the reticule is and how smoky it is. Parallax wise, it's not quite as good as the Holy Warrior, but it's not terrible. I mean, at 20-30 meters, you wouldn't really have a problem hitting your targets. This target is at about 8, but you can see at longer distances how not being directly behind the optic could lead to you missing the targets. But in this respect, this optic's not too bad at all. Amazon EOTech night vision test, just cycling down to the lowest possible setting. This optic doesn't have a night vision setting. Night vision setting does in fact just change the reticule to green. Might be a nice feature for you, but if you're using night vision, completely useless. And switching to green now, and you can see you can't really see through the optic. The night vision is completely blinded by the reticule. the Holy Warrior LCO. Really interesting sight. Has fantastic light transmission due to the low profile shroud. When I was looking back through the footage on the range, it does have some big parallax errors. So this is a great sight if you're only fighting up close and personal, maybe in a CQB environment. It means you can really see your target and nothing's going to get obscured. If you're going to shooting at longer ranges and you're not really behind the gun, you're going to run into trouble. So I thought, while we're here, I thought we'd show you some other Holy Warrior products, particularly if you're not massively going for a clone. This is a copy of the Leopold LCO. It's got a really big window. It's got a really big window, very little around it. So it's not shrouded like an EOTech window. It's a big window to look through, very little outside to get in the way of what you're actually looking at. This just has a dot rather than the ring of death like you get with an EOTech. Brightness is pretty easily adjustable, and it has a green and a red option as well. Okay, let's try this out. First time I've shot this, so let's see how we get on with it. So far I really like the visibility through it, with very little to get in the way. Really nice. There's very little to impede your view. Light transmission's pretty good, even at the edges of the lens. Not so much distortion. Bit different because it's a very fine dot rather than a big circle of death like you get on the EOTechs, but I quite like that. Holy Warrior LCO parallax test. This was one of the ones I saw on the range when I was looking through the reticule with the camera. This had some significant parallax issues. It's not a deal breaker. If you shoot at close ranges or you're really good at getting your head behind the optic, you can still do it. This optic does have amazing light transmission. You can really see what's going on. You just have to keep your head directly behind the optic with a good cheek weld. So the LCO was pretty good through night vision. Because of the great light transmission, you can still see what's beyond the reticule. And that was it in its lowest setting. So it doesn't have an official night vision setting, but that was in its lowest power setting. I'm just cycling through just to show you again. So a good budget choice maybe if you're fighting at close ranges with night vision. I would check what it's like with analog tubes. This is it with my digital tube. So check before you buy maybe. Next up we have the Holy Warrior AP1 and AP2 small red dot sights. Internally these are pretty much the same, so I'm not going to show you them both for time reasons, but they're both really nice, well built, really good light transmission. The mounts are a little bit finicky, they're not quite as nice as the real ones, but again these are £50 for the AP1 and £55 for the AP2. I think overall these are the best value in the Holy Warrior range. It's a fantastic price. The transmission of light and the dot in these is really good. They're not night vision capable, but if you're not using night vision, that's really not a problem for you. So it's a nice, reasonably cloudy day in Britain. I'm on a 5, so there's loads left. This goes up to 12. So we're on 5 out of 12 in terms of brightness. Optically, it's pretty good. Not much error, a little bit at the edge of the lens, but not very much at all, certainly compared to most Airsoft clones. It's got a bit of a tint on it, which actually increases contrast, so it's actually brighter at the moment through my eyes than it is outside of the optic. It's very nice, seems like well put together. Mount's a little bit fiddly, but other than that, really good. It doesn't come with a riser, so I've got it on this Unity Tactical riser to bring it up a bit, make it more comfortable for me. I need a slightly higher optic. Okay, let's try it out. Unlike a lot of Airsoft T1, T2 clones, they're using a nice red lens, which is what the real one uses. Looks a lot like the real one. Normally that kind of silver front lens is a dead giveaway that you're using a clone. This one's really good. This is the Holy Warrior AP2 parallax test. This was very good. I didn't manage to get the dot centered on the target, but it's just on the edge of the target there, and you can see it doesn't move around very much. Really very good. This was quite impressive for such a low budget little optic. Again, another reason I really rate these. I think they're pretty good. I'd be very happy using them. Now, about one of the only downsides of these AP2s, not really night vision compatible. That was its lowest setting. I'll just cycle through them again to show you. So anything beyond the reticule is going to be blinded. It's not the end of the world. You can maybe make it work, but I think there are better options, particularly if you're spending that amount of money on night vision. You probably want something which is genuinely night vision compatible. Other than that, really great optic. Tom, you've all been saying, why don't you talk about the magnifier? So I will. So this is another product from Holy Warrior. It's a flip to side ×3 magnifier. You've got some different height plates, so you can set up behind different height optics. You can also reverse the whole thing, taking out a couple of bolts, flip it around so you can have it flipping to the left rather than the right. It's got a quick detach lever arm here, so you can get it off if you really want to as well. And diopter at the back, and also up and down. Bear in mind it's a magnifier, it doesn't have a reticule in it itself. The up and down is just to center the red dot optic inside the magnifier. So you will need some form of red dot in front to be magnified behind this. So for most games of Airsoft, really we're only shooting at 30-40 metres at most. Certainly in the UK, it's not really a problem. We can just use the front mounted optic. If you're struggling to observe fall of shot though, you can put this in front and it makes everything bigger. If you're spotting at a milsim or something else and you need to see 100 metres to identify targets, really useful. This one is pretty good by Airsoft standards. Most Airsoft magnifiers have a really small eye box, the eye box being where your eye needs to be behind the optic in order to get it to focus. Sometimes that can be quite big, sometimes it's quite small. This one is relatively small, but again that's relatively normal for Airsoft optics and magnifiers, particularly as they're quite short and they don't have massive objective lenses. Just do a bit of shooting with this and see how we get on. So let's engage. It's far enough away that I can't really see where my BBs are going. Now I can see what's going on. If someone jumps me, and then we're back to range again. So not something you use all the time. Again, a lot of military units use them, so if you're doing a clone build, really good. And compared to a lot of Airsoft magnifiers, which to be honest are complete trash, this one is pretty good. It's a bit smoky, and the eye box is quite small, but it's certainly usable. And I can see my fall of shot. The distance is past 40, 50, 60 metres. Okay. Thanks for watching AATV. Been your host Tom Anvil Hibberd. Thanks again to the Cage Airsoft for providing these optics for review. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon.